After committing one of the most heinous and cruel and trust-defying crimes imaginable, the temptation is to say bring back the death penalty for that monster Wayne Couzens. But the whole life sentence handed out today to the police officer who murdered that wonderful woman, Sarah Everard, is the best possible punishment for this revolting scumbag. He will never again experience freedom. He will never again hug his family, who he has also revoltingly destroyed. And the words of Sarah's brave mother and father will ricochet in his brain for the rest of his pitiful life. For a serving officer to exploit lockdown COVID powers to commit such a crime makes me feel physically sick. Metropolitan Police Commissioner Dame Cressida Dick has said Couzens' crimes have brought shame on the force, and on that she's right.
His actions were a gross betrayal of everything policing stands for. What he did was unthinkable and appalling. There are no words that can fully express the fury and overwhelming sadness that we all feel about what happened to Sarah. I am so sorry.
But she remains in her job tonight. Speaking after the sentencing, Home Secretary Priti Patel said serious questions need to be asked of the police.
It's right that we constantly hold the police to account for what has happened, and with regards to the whole issue around the fact that he was a serving police officer, which has been reflected upon in the judgment today, there are questions, serious questions that will need to...
This bloke is the worst type of animal. He is the worst type of animal. And I absolutely understand why many people think that he should get the death penalty. I also think today his QC was wrong to say that there are worse crimes, because there are not. But a state-sanctioned death would provide, in my opinion, an easy and early escape for this sorry excuse of a man who has decades left to rot in jail. Having had a family member killed by a scumbag myself, I understand the temptation to want vengeance in the form of his life. However, too often over our lifetime have we seen miscarriages of justice where innocent men have been found guilty. We cannot take that risk. But as far as Wayne Couzens is concerned, this man should never see daylight again. He is the worst type of animal who should be treated as such behind bars. While Ramonas, both here and abroad, try to blame Brexit for the supply and driver shortages rocking the world, the actual issue has been overlooked. This looming crisis, which could put Christmas at risk, is clearly being caused by 18 months of international lockdowns and travel bans. That's why the heads of a number of very important global transport organisations, including the IRU, the IATA and the ITF, have written an important and impassioned open letter calling on governments around the world to end travel bans and COVID restrictions that they say are having an enormously detrimental impact on supply chains. Now, this is important. Their industries account for more than $20 trillion of world trade annually, and they represent 65 million global transport workers and over 3.5 million road freight and airline companies, as well as more than 80% of the world's shipping fleet, merchant shipping fleet. And they're very concerned, and we should be listening to them. Without urgent changes, they warn global transport systems will collapse. Listen to this letter. It reads, the impact of nearly 2 years' worth of strain placed particularly upon maritime and road transport workers, but also impacting air crews, is now being seen. At the peak of the crew change crisis, 400,000 seafarers were unable to leave their ships, with some seafarers working for as long as 18 months over their initial contract. Their continued mistreatment is adding pressure on an already scrambling global supply chain. We are witnessing unprecedented disruptions and global delays and shortages on essential goods, including electronics, food, fuel and medical supplies. Consumer demand is rising and the delays look set to worsen ahead of Christmas and continue into 2022. The true cost of lockdown is about to hit the world hard. As even the failed zero-COVID societies of Australia and New Zealand prove, shutting borders are only delaying the coronavirus issue. So we must open up the world, especially to these terribly treated transport workers who have gone through so much, before it's too late and they all just quit. Keir Starmer is nothing like James Bond. 007, he's known, isn't he, for achieving unlikely victories against all odds, whereas Labour's leader of no opposition is known for clutching defeat from the jaws of almost certain. Question, have a look.
Been a big week for James Bond, Sir Keir. Do you have a favourite Bond?
I don't have a favourite Bond, but I do think it's time for a female Bond.
Really?
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
That's a bit...
okay.
Well, we will put that to our reviewers a little bit later on.
What? Honestly? Does he have political advisors? Does he have a political brain? The guy was asked his favourite Bond. Yet he decided to enter one of the most hotly debated culture war issues. I mean, for goodness sake, even feminist comedian Phoebe Waller-Bridge concedes Bond is a bloke and should remain a bloke. The blowhards today think Starmer could win back the red wall after his conference speech. But his push to secure a female Bond suggests otherwise to me. And finally, pop superstar Britney Spears is one step closer to the freedom she craves and so richly deserves. A Californian judge handed her a significant and well-deserved victory against her father Jamie in court yesterday. She suspended the controversial conservatorship he has held since 2008, meaning he may well have to turn over his accounting and private bookkeeping from the last 13 years. Britney's dad seemed to treat his daughter like a performing robot. Her new attorney, Matthew Rosengart, called him an abusive, cruel and toxic man. The last time I saw Britney backstage while on tour in London, she was a shell of her former self, completely fed up of being told how to live her life. The next time Britney performs on stage and releases her brilliant music, it must be as a free woman in full control of her own career, her own body and her own millions.